My name is Deirdre Fischer. I am a former head of school. I'm now based in Adelaide. I call myself an entrepreneur now. I have my own business and I work with a lot of different clients. I work with schools and leaders in schools, and basically my purpose or my mission is to help improve the teaching in those schools and also the leading in those schools. So that's really my main mission at the moment. There's going to be 4 parts of this presentation before the fair. These are hints of what I would anticipate anyone would do with regards to their preparation before the fair. I'm going to actually talk briefly about how to navigate sign-up, and sign-ups in different fairs are very different. For example, I go from here, from Melbourne to Bangkok. The Bangkok fair, I do a slightly different presentation on how to navigate the sign-up there because it's a much larger fair. There is some interviewing tips, and these are tips that I have learned over the years, and that is the section based on my experiences and my perceptions. And then finally, how to manage your own expectations from the job fair as well, and manage your highs and lows throughout the job fair. So, number 1, if you're at the earlier presentation, one of the things I said is know your why. Why do you do what you do? Why do you teach? And it is a simple enough question, but it is quite interesting that many people are not able to articulate clearly why they teach. Why do they choose the teaching profession? So knowing what you teach is, I think, very important. Knowing why you teach and what you teach, of course, is important. But also then, what are you looking for in your next job? And not country or not school. What are the criteria? What are you looking for? What is the type of job? What is the type of school that you want? Some people say, I would like to have I do not want to work in a proprietary school or an owner-operated school. Some people say that they only want to work in an IB school, or some people might say, I only want to work in a British curriculum school. Because they've looked at their CV and they thought, you know what, this is actually going to add value to my CV because I think I need to put this on my CV. So this is what my next job is going to give me. So you also look for the type of leader. So think about the leaders or the leadership that you have worked with in schools and say, okay, what am I looking for in a leader? So what you're actually doing is when I say know what you're seeking in your next job, you are looking at different parts and then you are prioritising what is my number 1 priority. For example, when my first overseas appointment was in the Philippines, and it was way up north in the Philippines in a rather remote area. The school did not provide medical insurance. Guess what was in my top 3 priorities for my next job? So something simple like that was what I had identified. And I made sure that I had done my research to make sure, well, yeah, obviously I did. So that's the type of thing that you need to do is what do you want in your next job? And only sort of narrow it down and prioritise to your top 3 because they are probably your most critical. And then you do your research. And there's so much online and there's so much that you can read from a website. A lot of my work these days is, before I'm going into schools, is I research schools. And I can glean a lot of information from what they put on their website, what they choose. Because remember, it's what they choose to put on their website. And I read that. And if I can't find, for example, anything aligned with their mission, then I know that they're not perhaps a mission-aligned school, or that would invite further questions that I would have for the leaders in that school is how are you living your mission? This is what you say your mission statement is, but then how are you living your mission statement? What's the evidence to suggest that you are doing what you say you do? So do your research. Number 3, audit your CV. Audit your CV, have a look at your CV. Where are the gaps? For example, when I was going overseas, one of the items or one of the criteria for me going overseas is that I identified that there was a gap in my CV for boarding experience. I had no boarding experience. So that was a gap in my CV because I thought that that would be useful for future jobs back in Australia to actually have the boarding component on my CV. So you audit your CV. Where are the gaps? Have someone share your CV with someone else, another leader, a school leader that you might know. You say, what do you see here? What do you see here? Where do you think my strengths are? Where do you think my gaps are? So audit your CV and then work out, and this helps you with your prioritisation of how you're going to then add value to your CV. Identify your non-negotiables. The example I shared about medical insurance, that was one of my non-negotiables. All right, so I heard someone ask a question about the right school for their children or the right fit for their children. That would probably be a non-negotiable. All right, making sure that your children can also fit into the school. And then the last thing is be very open to out of the ordinary. I think many people have, and I heard Malcolm talk about that people go into fairs and they might have a certain idea about a school or a particular country, and then they've ended up in a job. What was his example? Zambia and Angola, yeah. So be very open. I can still remember the second job I wanted. I wanted to get a job in Singapore. That's because I'm a netball coach, right? And I really missed netball. It sounds stupid, but when I went overseas, I missed netball. So I wanted to do netball coaching again. So I thought, right, I want a job in Singapore. So then I can do netball coaching. Well, of course, did I get a job in Singapore? No. I certainly tried. I had lots and lots of different interviews, but I never got that job in Singapore. Never have. And I had to switch to basketball instead. But that was good. My basketballers couldn't shoot to save themselves, but I tell you what, they could pass and defend really, really well. So this is really my know what you're looking for in your job, audit your CV, prioritise what you're looking for in your new job or your next job, and be open. Be open to whatever's out there. Once you've identified your criteria and you've done your research, then you can use the website, the Search Associates website, to then try and find your match. At the same time, you write up your clarifications. What's the information that you're not getting from your sources that you actually need to find out? And then, if you haven't done this already, this is your part of your preparation in December, is you email and you contact schools prior to the job fair. And some schools, I know in my school, we always had Skype interviews before the job fair. You know, and I also always used to set up the Skype interviews and say, oh, by the way, I'm going to be at Melbourne, Bangkok and London, and I'd like to set up whatever job fair they were going to. Because as Malcolm has said, it's that face-to-face. It's that, in the IB we call it the heuristic capability. It's the gut instinct. It's the connection. And it's about the relationship that you can form as a result of that interview. So have your prepared notes to drop into the files. I work with a lot of candidates. A lot of the questions I get from them is, I have emailed 10 or 15 different schools. I have not got a response. What do I do? Do I follow up? Yes, you do follow up. I think, and I'm going to speak from personal experience here, I think it's terribly rude that someone doesn't acknowledge any sort of application or response. Unfortunately, that's, I do find in my experience, again, that there are schools that just do not. They have so many volumes of inquiries that they don't respond. My suggestion would be that they should look at a system where there is probably an automatic responder, that at least you get a response so that you're not sort of hanging out waiting for it. All right? But do continue, and if they're at the fair, see them at sign up and find out whether you're on their radar or not. All right? But don't give up. Okay? Keep going. Sign up. So, sign up happens tomorrow. This is the Melbourne Fair is fantastic because it's a smaller fair and it's quite relaxed. Very different from London, for example. And I can still remember as a recruiter from London, you know, and sometimes the configuration of the hotel was not quite ideal, and there'd be big, you know, lineups out, like snaking out the door, and the doors would open, and then there'd be sort of this, not like the New Year's Day sales, I will add. Not like that, but you can get the general idea. Here it's very relaxed. You've got lots of time and lots of space. So you walk in, it will be in this room. The schools are arranged alphabetically. The layout is up in the coffee area out there, so you can check out and plan how you're doing a sign up. But dress for success. First impressions count, and they're often the lasting impression, the lasting impression that you make. The room arrangement I've talked about. When you are meeting people, or you're going up, it's that initial contact, the eye contact, the handshake. In some cultures and in some schools, that is not appropriate. So just be very aware in the Middle Eastern countries with males that they may not want to shake your hand. I mean, I'm not sure. I can't remember whether we've got any male Middle Eastern schools at the fair, so just double check on that one. And then don't forget to smile. I know you might be a little nervous, but don't forget the smile, all right? So that when you do come up, you extending your hand, it is the smile, all right? So don't forget. Elevator pitch and resume with a picture. Elevator pitch. How many people here know what an elevator pitch is? What is it?
It's a brief introduction as to who you are, what your interests are, what your experience is, and what you can add to the particular school.
Good. The time it takes you to ride an elevator, you need to be able to convey who you are and what you're interested in. So, again, and that's just a brief outline. Different people and different schools do this differently. But if you're approaching someone at a desk, you see the vacancy listed that you're interested in, and it's, hello, my name is Deirdre Fischer. I'm very interested in the design technology job you have listed there. Here is my resume. And then you may talk about one thing that you want that person to remember about your application. And it could be, I have 15 years of teaching MYP design technology in a range of different schools. Boom. That's it. So try and encapsulate it in that one sentence with regards to what it is that you could add value to their school. All right? What if you don't get an interview? I always try to look at it that the fact that whenever tough things happen in life or when things don't go your way, I always believe that there is something better around the corner. The corner might not be very far away or it could be a long way away, but there is always a reason why you haven't got either that job interview or you haven't got that job. There is always something better out there. I was just talking with a candidate just earlier who just came to me, and she said, I was here at the fair last year. And I was, oh, yes, that's right, I remember you. And then she said, the job with the school didn't work out because they couldn't get a visa. And, that's sad, that's really, because she'd come to the fair, she got the job, she was very excited. But I've got a job already because I had another interview with someone else at the job fair and they offered me a job. So, she was disappointed. Things didn't work out, but look what's happened. She's got a job and now she's working out, well, what am I going to do with my time? Because I don't have to be at the fair. So I said, there's lots to do in Melbourne. So be prepared for disappointment. Part of being an IB learner or being part of the IB is being courageous enough to recognise, and if you are courageous, that means that you're you need to be prepared for some disappointment, and that will happen. But it's about how you then approach that disappointment. Don't personalise it. It's got nothing to do with you. In my head, when I am recruiting, I know that I might need, and I'll use design, I might need an MYP design technology teacher, but I also need someone who's had, because in that team of MYP teachers, I need someone who's had a lot of MYP experience. And I need someone who's perhaps worked at more than one international school. Or perhaps I need someone that's also going to be able to coach volleyball or basketball. So that's in my head. They're all the things that I know that I'm looking at in my jigsaw puzzle to actually try and find the right people with the right fit. So you might be the right person. You might fit philosophically with the school. You might be the right candidate for working in that school, but for that particular job at that particular time and place, it might not be the right fit. But it's got nothing to do with you, right? And it's got nothing to do with what you are bringing. Hope for the best, but do plan for the fact that you may not get exactly what it is that you want, or there could be an unexpected surprise around the corner. The one thing I will remind you, going back to the first part of the presentation, once you've identified your top 3 criteria for your next job, keep going back to that. Does it do this? Does it meet that? Does it meet... it might meet 2 out of the 3. Or it ticks a lot of other boxes. So overall, it might be a great fit. But go back to the criteria, but know what you're looking for. Plan your movement around the hotel. There are stairs that you can use as well as lifts if the lifts get a bit chock-a-block or a bit busy. Make sure that you have actually researched the school before you go in there or have questions ready for the school. Research the country and generate your questions about the country. And perhaps generate questions for people that may work in the school already currently, because one of the questions you could ask is, could you put me in contact with one of your teachers to talk about living there or working there? Make sure you know the interview locations. The search office, this is what happens every year. We get a lot of queries from people who don't write down the location for the interview. So at the sign up, make sure you clarify 2 things, the time and the location. Please make sure. But if you somehow miss that or you forget that, the search office, we will have that information on where you can find recruiters. You can arrive early to your designated time, but please do not interrupt. Nick's probably already said this. Please do not wait until your time and then knock on the door. Don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions. Do not be afraid to ask them. If you're not sure what they're asking, say, I'm not sure what you're asking me. Can you clarify what you mean by your question? That's good feedback for the interviewer. Use examples. If you're at our earlier presentation for the IB, use examples from your practice. I want to get a picture of who you are as a recruiter. Who are you as a person? And then who are you as a teacher? And then I can work out in my head as to whether I think you're going to fit with the team that you're going to be working with back in my school. Be authentic, be honest, and be prepared. Make sure you know what you're interviewing for. Clarify at the very beginning of the interview, which if the recruiter doesn't do it, then make sure you clarify so that you're both on the same page with regards that you're interviewing for the jobs that you think you're interviewing for.
Can I just ask, if you are interested in the school, but there's not actually a particular position being advertised?
Yep.
So...
At sign up,
yeah.
When you go to sign up, you see them at sign up and you see whether they would like to interview you or not.
You ask.
Yes, you ask. And I know that when people approach me at the job fair at the sign up, depending on my schedule and time, I would often do that, but I can't speak for everyone else. All right? Some questions, potentially. I'm going to start from the bottom. Do know your why. Why do you want to work in that school? I know it's a standard, but I really responded well when some people actually said to me, I would really like to come and work in your school because I really like the service learning program that you have in your school, and this is how it connects to what I've already done. When I get letters or people emails that are the generic emails, or people don't know anything about the school or have not done their research on the school, let's say it adds another hurdle in the interview process that you don't need to actually add. You remove that obstacle yourself by making sure you know why you want to work in that school. I worked in schools that found it that were not as well paying as some of my other schools that I've in the same country. So it was always difficult to attract people. So for me, it was always important to find out, well, why do you want to come to my school? Now, apart from the obvious of getting some IB experience, what else is it about the school that they really actually want to come to the school that I was ahead of? So that was important for me. So knowing your why and why you want to apply to that school. Now, even your unexpected ones, between sign up and the interview, do some quick research. Go straight to their website. Find something that resonates with you and connects with your experience. Be prepared to talk about an area of strength and what I call an area for growth. Be prepared with examples. So remember, I want to know two things. I want to know who you are as a person. Again, this is me. And I want to know who you are as a teacher. So have examples ready to talk about what you do. Short, concise examples ready for the question that may get asked. I usually ask a question about what did you learn from a challenging situation. So I'm interested in finding out what did you learn from that experience, and I'm also interested in on how you reacted and responded in a difficult and challenging time. And it's the same with conflict. Conflict for me and a process of conflict resolution was an important one. How do you handle conflict? What do you do when you have a conflict with a colleague? I might give scenarios, and the scenarios might be about communication. And again, I'm looking at how do you communicate, again, with perhaps different cultural groups and those lines of communication. Like how, I'm just looking again, process, and I like hearing examples. The other thing that I always look for is what have you done beyond what the school has asked you to do in your current school? Not what they're expecting you to do, right? And I worked in private schools here in Australia, and our expectation was that we had to do after-school activities for at least 6 months of the year. That was an expectation. But my question is, what did you do beyond what that requirement was? Because I'm looking again at the people that are willing to give of their time for the benefit of the school. Again, these are all personal experiences, and not everyone looks for these. Now, examples of questions that you may want to ask. How is your school mission, or how the school values lived in the school? Again, you could ask that of a head of school or a principal. Have you got examples, or have you got examples that can help me understand the type of school that you are leading on how you live your mission? You could ask the question, are there opportunities to serve on different committees in the school? How does your school support professional learning for teaching and non-teaching staff, as well as the school leaders? I found that schools that talked about professional learning for their non-teaching staff showed that they were, well, reflected, in my experience, an interest in inclusive practices, because they are included, because the non-teaching staff are just as important as the teaching staff in the education that you're providing at that school. What are the annual school goals from your strategic plan that you're focusing on this year or next year? Love this one. What is the greatest challenge facing your school? Or what is the greatest opportunity at the moment in your school? Either way. How is your curriculum resourced? What role do teachers play in resourcing the curriculum? Do the teachers have input into the budget preparation process? Obviously, if you have children and you are travelling with children, that this is probably an essential if that hasn't already been addressed. You want to find out about the school. Because remember, while they are interviewing you, you are interviewing them. Don't forget, this is a two-way process, not a one-way. You are interviewing them just as much, because is this the school I want to work in? Are these the leaders I want to work with? What are your current needs for coaching and extracurricular? If you are interested in leadership, and this probably supports the other question about are there opportunities to serve on various committees? So what are the pathways or the ways in which you can contribute to the school to support your leadership aspirations? One thing that I always did when I was recruiting for jobs is I asked for access to their accreditation, which is if it's a CIS school or a NEASC school, asked if I could have access to any of the reports or authorisation reports from the IB. That tells you a lot about the school. You actually just need the last couple of pages on recommendations and commendations. But if they give you access to any independent reports, that's fantastic. These are the sorts of things, if you haven't already been told, what you should probably reveal in an interview. Health issues, any pets, any arrest records. If single, any partner that might join you should be registered single with a partner. So this sorts of information is actually quite important. Please do not ask anything that's obvious from information you can already get from either the website or from the Search Associates profile. At the end of the interview, please make sure that you express your appreciation, and it's okay to ask about next steps. Make sure that you're clear and there is clarity about next steps. And that can be either a thank you note or an email. Please don't forget to market yourself. If it's not this year, it could be for future years. Managing your own fair expectations. I've just got a rough statistic. Is that about right, Nick?
About 60, Norman.
60. I'm going to have to change that now. So it may not happen at this fair, but it could happen in the weeks following. And in the case of the example I shared earlier, it happened a year later. Please use this as a great professional learning experience. Use the resources that we have available to ask questions. Build your relationships and practice your interview techniques and skills. So on behalf of Nick and Paula, I would like to say thank you very much for choosing Search Associates. Feel free, I'll be one of the school advisors, so I'm happy to help out with any advice whatsoever, and I'm sorry I didn't have time for any questions. So hand over to Nick now.